The fight for independence was an ever-present theme in the history of Poland even before the 20th century. Several insurgencies arose in the early 19th century which aimed to restore independence to Poland. For instance, the Polish-Russian War, also known as the November Uprising, occurred in November 1830. It was started by Polish troops which revolted against Russian rule. However, the rebels' requests for external aid from France were ignored. Also, the failure to abolish serfdom, which is a legal system when workers are classed the lower social class of the feudal society, cost them the support from the peasants. The Polish resistance was eventually subdued by the Russians in September 1831.
Three partitions took place in Poland during the 18th century, with Poland dismembered to the neighboring empires Prussia, Russia, and Austria. The first treaty of partition took place in February 1772, justified as a means to prevent anarchy in Poland. Prussian King Frederick II took West Prussia and a part of Great Poland. Empress Catherine II took Eastern Dunia and the valley of Upper Dnieper, while Maria Theresa of Austria took the southern regions of Galicia. The second partition took place in 1793 and a third partition in 1795, which marked the end of Polish independence. The Treaty of Partition in 1795 dismembered large areas to Russia, the east to Prussia, and Little Poland to Austria. Poland would disappear off the maps of Europe from 1795 until 123 years later in 1918, after the World War I, which brought the collapse of the partitioning empires. All three empires put the Roman Catholic Church under tight supervision and did not spare the Jewish population from heavy taxation and bureaucratic controls. Because of the partition, the Polish identity was divided from the 18th century under different patterns of political, economic, and social development, which accentuated regional differences. Generally, there were many attempts to regain independence through revolts from 1794 until 1905. However, they were all violently suppressed, especially from the 1830s onwards.
The revolution in the Kingdom of Poland refers to the major uprisings and demonstrations in the Russian partition Poland, and includes cities such as Lodz and Warsaw. The ongoing Russo-Japanese War between 1904 to 1905 had a major impact on the start of the revolutions in Poland. Due to the war, the Russian Empire was forced to recruit Polish conscripts into the Russian Imperial Army and also introduced Russification policies, which was a form of cultural assimilation process during which non-Russian communities, voluntarily or not, give up their culture and language in favor of the Russian one. This created unhappiness among the Poles, and further inspired by the ongoing revolution in Russia at the onset of 1905, revolutionary groups such as the Polish Socialist Party and Social Democracy of the Kingdom of Poland and Lithuania rallied the masses to encourage industrial workers in the region to stage demonstrations to showcase their unhappiness at the ruling Russian Empire. The workers and peasants were also motivated to carry out such protests due to the worsening working and living conditions in Poland. One of the major cities where these uprisings occurred was in Warsaw. Revolutionary groups such as PPS and SDK-PIL took advantage of the unhappiness of the Poles in Warsaw and rallied them to stage an uprising against the Russian Empire. The masses in Poland were demanding for better working conditions, more political freedom, as well as to stop the Russification policies of the government. The uprising and demonstrations in Warsaw were so bad and frequent that eventually the Russian government declared the city as under siege. These events in Warsaw was witnessed by a Polish painter named Witold Wojtkiewicz, and inspired by these events, sketched a drawing based on what he saw during the demonstration. In the city of Lodz, workers had been in a state of unrest with several major strikes having taken place, which were forcibly suppressed by the Russian police and military. This insurrection began spontaneously without backing from any organized group. Eventually, by 25th of June, the uprising was crushed with estimates of several hundred dead and wounded. Unrest in Lodz would continue for many months, although without protest on such a large scale as before. The uprising was ultimately crushed by the Russian authorities. Official reports indicated 151 civilian deaths and 150 wounded. Both these revolutions in Lodz and Warsaw were successfully put down by the Russian government. Even though the Russian government gave them some concessions as a result of the unrest, the revolutions were ultimately a failure in terms of helping Poland achieve political freedom. However, the revolutions of 1905 to 1907 in Russian-ruled Poland, with its dramatic manifestation of the transformation of the country's political culture, marks a major, if not entirely appreciated, watershed in modern Polish history. The significance of the 1905 revolution as a historical event lies not in the direct transformation of class relations or a formally recognized step towards national independence. Rather, it can be argued that it was the initial invisible tipping point for constituting the political field as it marked the beginning of mass political participation and created awareness in the masses of the importance of Polish independence.
Another eminent Polish was Maria Curie, a famous physicist. She was born in Poland in 1867. She encountered her first academic obstacle when she could not attend University of Warsaw, as only males were allowed to enter into the prestigious institute. This did not stop her dream of going abroad to earn an official degree. Eventually, she made her way to Paris, in France, to read physics, chemistry, and math in 1891. She completed her master's degree in physics in 1893 and degree in mathematics in 1894. She married Pierre Curie in 1895. Her marriage to Pierre Curie helped her research push new frontiers when both of them worked together to discover radioactivity. She became the first female to win the Nobel Prize winner in 1903 for physics for work in radioactivity research, and 1911 for chemistry for a discovery of radium and polonium. One of the most famous Polish leaders, Ignacy Paderewski, was born in 1860. He became a well-known pianist and later went on to become Poland's first Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs in 1919.
Polish partitions enjoy different levels of economic and social development, as well as civil liberties. At the very bottom, we have Austrian partition, which was more rural, but politically liberal area. And you can see culture as well as science blossoming in the region. Then we have, at the east, we have Russian partition and West Prussian partition, which were more economically advanced regions, but as earlier mentioned, politically oppressed ones. Pre-World War I, Poland was ethnically, politically, linguistically, and geographically fragmented region. Almost 30% of the entire region were consisted of minorities, and none of the partitions were homogeneous one. And this fragmentation of the population affected the political and ideological landscape of pre-World War I Poland.
On the nationalist left frontier, the pro-independent, anti-Russian Joseph Pilsudski became a war hero and a key figure of Polish independence struggle. Pilsudski aimed to unify the nation and strengthen the nation's power to combat Russia. He enjoyed strong public support and eventually became the head of state of the newly independent Poland. Pilsudski's ideological opponent, right-wing Roman Dmowski, became a prominent figure as a leader of both nationalist National Democratic Party and Polish National Committee, established in France. He opposed Pilsudski's anti-Russian campaign and promoted a uniform, centralized Poland. Due to his absence during the independence struggle of Poland, Dmowski didn't establish as wide support amongst the population as Pilsudski, but can still be considered as a key player in laying down the foundations for Polish politics and identity. Both of these political figures are seen as political and spiritual founders of the nation that paved the way towards the future of Poland. It is important to distinguish that the Polish independence has more to do with external than internal struggles of the country. The different emperors had lost political and military power at the end of the World War I, which enabled more assertive independence movement in Poland. Russian withdrawal from the war and Austrian and German empires' loss created hope amongst the Poles. As the victories of the war, the Allies supported Poland's independence, although recognizing Dmowski's Polish National Committee as the only official political organization in Poland. Poland was officially declared as an independent state in the Paris Peace Conference of 1919, yet there were many years of political instability ahead.
World War I presented an unprecedented opportunity for the Poles. Due to the war, the three partitioning powers were at war against each other, with Germany and Austria-Hungary in an alliance against Russia. In 1915, Austria-Hungary and Germany occupied Warsaw and ended Russian leadership in Poland. With Russia's influence removed, the German and Austrian Emperor issued a decree in 1916 to create a Polish constitutional monarchy which granted consultative powers to Poland. In September 1917, the Central Powers also established the Regency Council in Poland, which appointed a government with full control over Poland's educational and judicial affairs, as well as a partially elected legislative body. The February Revolution of 1917 also provided another opportunity when it collapsed the Romanov dynasty of Russia. Polish liberal Alexander Lenacki quickly seized the weakness of the Russians and encouraged the Russian provisional government to declare support for an independent Poland. With Russia's public endorsement for Polish independence, Britain and France acknowledged the Polish National Committee led by Roman Moski as an official Polish organization. Thus, the National Committee won political legitimacy from the Entente powers and secured Poland's entry into the Versailles Peace Conference later on in 1918. Clearly, the partitioning powers were exhausted as the First World War dragged on. Russia collapsed first in 1917, while Austria-Hungary disintegrated by the end of October 1918. A German revolution in November 1918 led to the creation of a socialist government in Berlin, which ordered a disarmament and evacuation from Warsaw on 11 November 1918. This day marked the regain of independence for Poland after 123 years and is celebrated as Poland's Independence Day until today.